It's been a slow burn through the month of June so far, but these next 2 weekends are going to be massive for Tennessee recruiting. How? I'll tell you all that, plus College World Series. It's getting going tomorrow. It's going to be a jam-packed loaded Friday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, welcome into it, your Friday edition of Locked On Vols. I'm Eric Kane at _Kaner on Twitter, at Locked On Vols. You can always find me. We are your first listen each and every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And shout out everydayers for coming back for more of the program. That guy next to me, if you're watching on YouTube right now, is Matt Ray. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt_Ray_. He's here to set the scene for a massive weekend of recruiting for Tennessee football. We'll talk a little bit more reaction of the 2024 SEC schedule release in segment 2, and then we'll get your College World Series preview, Tennessee and Omaha. That is coming up here on today's show. Matt, what's up, man? Appreciate you taking the time. A big old weekend coming up for Tennessee football.
What's up, man? Yeah, the first of two massive weekends for the Vols on the recruiting trail. I mean, never stop recruiting, right? But these 2 weekends right here is what Tennessee's been building up towards since January.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You have those January and those March junior days, and you have spring practice with a goal in mind of getting kids on campus just to get them back in June for an official visit. And this is going to be the big one. This is when you need to have commitments starting to roll out and sprinkle throughout the rest of the summer. This is when you need to close some deals. I want to ask you about some official visitors. Tennessee's going to have, 12 in this weekend, correct?
12 is the number as of now for this weekend.
Jake Merklinger is going to be one of them. Of course, he's the quarterback of this class. That's going to be big. Caleb Beasley, a longtime defensive back commit who claims that he's a leader of this class and everything, but is still flirting with other schools. But he'll be here, which is big. And I got a couple of other ones. Who were Daniel Calhoun's one that comes to mind. Edwin Spillman's going to be here this weekend, which is just huge. How important is it for a weekend for those two guys, Daniel Calhoun and Edwin Spillman?
Yeah, it's big for both of those guys. I think, we'll start with Edwin Spillman. I mean, Tennessee has been in a good spot for Edwin Spillman for a while, but just because his brother Nate's on the team, Edwin's still going to go through the process. He's maintained that for months, and he has done just that. He's seen Florida State, he's seen Ohio State, he'll see Tennessee, he'll see Georgia, and then he'll probably make a decision sometime in July. It still feels like Tennessee is the team to beat here. I mean, having Nate on the team is certainly a big factor for Tennessee. He likes being around his brother. They've done so much together, played at Lipscomb together. It just feels like, Tennessee has a chance to continue to close the deal there. But, I mean, still, again, he visited some big-time schools. He's going to see Georgia again. So, still a very important weekend to finish things off with Edwin Spillman. And then Daniel Calhoun, a guy that we've talked about a bunch because he continues to make his way back to campus. Tennessee's trailing coming in again, and that's been the case multiple times. They're still trailing Alabama. They're still trailing Georgia. And the home state Bulldogs, they have a lot of momentum around them right now in this recruitment, but Tennessee's going to have a chance to shake things up. He continues to come back, even though those two teams have, kind of stood out among the rest for a while for Daniel Calhoun. So a big weekend, for both of those guys, in my opinion.
Williams Nwaneri, huge, big-time 5-star defensive lineman. He has liked Tennessee for a while now. Obviously, it's coming down to the last 2-3 schools for him, but he's been a guy that's always been in Tennessee's camp. Huge weekend to say the least for the 5-star, and you're not going to get them all, right? You're not going to get him. You're not going to get Fountain and Franklin and all those guys. Obviously, how big of a weekend is it for Tennessee to try to really move the needle with a 5-star?
Yeah, it's big. I mean, you've had him to campus twice since January. You need to make another move here this weekend. Oklahoma really wanted him on campus in Norman this weekend. It's their big recruiting weekend there. He opted to come to Tennessee. He went to Norman last weekend, had a good visit. Was back at Tennessee this weekend. Georgia's trying to work their way into this. They made a good impression during the first weekend of June with their official visit. But for Williams Nwaneri in Tennessee this weekend, you're getting into kind of the meat and potatoes of everything. You're going to see where everything sits, and you're going to find out, where the Vols are in this thing for the long haul. The interesting thing for Williams Nwaneri, and it's been this way for me for a while, is he has an official visit set up to Oregon in September. I don't know that he makes it that far. If he makes it that far, all bets are off. In my opinion, I've said that a couple of times, and that's nothing to do with anything that anybody's done. It's just the further these recruitments go, especially one like Williams Nwaneri, when you're talking about a guy that's the number one defender in the nation according to the On3 rankings. Every school is going to, throw their best shot, and then official visits are kind of in the rear view. I think things could go a different way, but I'm not sure that he makes it to September. We'll see. But this is a big weekend for Tennessee as you really get a chance to make a move on Williams Nwaneri here kind of later in June. And then you already mentioned it, but you can't mention Williams Nwaneri this weekend without, mentioning Cam Franklin.
Yeah.
I mean, just a guy that Tennessee has recruited, had on campus dating back to when he was a sophomore, a guy that Rodney Garner really likes on the defensive front that can do a lot of different things, uber athletic guy that's still got room to grow into his frame. It's a big weekend for him. Auburn and Ole Miss sticking around in that one. Miami trying to be a bit of a dark horse. They shot their shot during the first weekend of official visits in June. So, for Cam Franklin, it's about, getting back, being around the staff, and really seeing if he can see himself there. For a long time, Cam Franklin talked about making a decision in late October, November, December. Now Cam Franklin's talking about making a decision in early July, sometime, before his season. So that makes his visit that much more important to me. He'll probably still see LSU later in the month, but Tennessee has a chance to really solidify where they stand with Cam Franklin this weekend.
Two other ones I want to ask you about specifically. And again, there's 12 official visitors coming in this weekend. Next weekend's going to be even bigger. We'll get you back on here to preview that one as well. But easily the offensive tackle, he's coming in officially. And kind of where's Tennessee at in terms of the offensive line in this stage of the calendar? And then Jonathan Eccles getting back on for his official. He was the first one to jump in the boat July 4th of last year. It long been rumored that, he'll look to go somewhere else, but every time we check in on him, it feels like he's still, all Vol. Florida's pushing. Florida's going to continue to push. What does Tennessee need to do to really kind of, settle down the worries, if you will, with Jonathan Eccles?
Yeah, I mean, Florida thinks they have some momentum with Jonathan Eccles, but in my opinion, I think Tennessee's still sitting in good shape here right now. I think, after that Florida official visit, he continued to have good conversation with Alec Abel, and he continued, to say the right things to Tennessee. And I just think Jonathan Eccles' camp is excited about the opportunity for him to be at Tennessee. This weekend, again, is important. You get a guy here for multiple days. It's been almost a year since he committed. So, you can't discount that. He'll see USF later in the month on an official visit. I'm not really worried about that one for Tennessee at this point. They're going to swing. They're going to shoot their shot. Don't get me wrong. They coveted Jonathan Eccles when Alex Golesh was on staff here at Tennessee, and they haven't. I'm sure he was probably one of the first recruits they contacted in the 24 class once they got there. To me, this weekend with Tennessee, it's about continuing to reiterate that this is home. That's something that is big for Jonathan Eccles and his family's finding that right culture. And I think Tennessee's continued to do that. I think he's continued to relate well to Alec Abel. And then with Marquez Easley, a big visit here. Tennessee probably trails in this one coming into. Georgia showed really well. Alabama's deep in this recruitment, but the Vols are going to have a chance to swing big. Marquez Easley's been high on Tennessee since they offered him. They need a really solid tackle in this class, in my opinion, and he provides that opportunity for Tennessee in this recruiting class. And there's opportunity here for him to play early. So I think Tennessee's going to put their best foot forward with him this weekend, and you see where things go. But a visitor that, when you look at it, you talk about Nwaneri, you talk about Eccles, you talk about Daniel Calhoun. All those guys deserve, their respect, but don't overlook this weekend with Marquez Easley, a very, very important target for Tennessee.
Matt, in closing, we kind of discussed this, here on this podcast. We do it at VolQuest all the time. Tennessee is recruiting. They're dipping their hands into a different caliber of player right now, elite pools of talent, if you will. You are going neck and neck with the Alabamas, the Georgias, the LSUs, the Floridas, who else, but Tennessee's got to win its fair share. You are not going to win them all. It never happens that way in recruiting. But you've got to win your fair share. And I think that these last 2 weekends, again, just to reiterate, it is so big, it's so massive in order to kind of get to that point to where you are winning your fair share later in the month of June, July, and on throughout the season. Kind of, I guess overall glance at this class right now, kind of where Tennessee is with certain guys in this in their target pools. Kind of how would you evaluate that right now entering the last little 2 weeks of June?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. These 2 weekends are just so important in determining the shape and direction of this class. You don't want to lose out on the momentum that you had from last season, doing what you did, reaching the number 1 ranking in the playoff rankings, winning the Orange Bowl, Biletnikoff winner. You need to capitalize on that if you're Tennessee. Again, that doesn't mean winning them all. You're not going to win them all. Georgia's the 2-time defending, national champions. They just missed on Sammy Brown to Clemson. They just missed on another linebacker target to Auburn. And nobody has produced at that inside linebacker spot more than Georgia in the last 5 years, most likely. So, again, you're not going to win them all, especially in today's day and age of recruiting. But you're right. We've said it. We've talked about it. You have to win your fair share. Tennessee's got a good nucleus in this class right now, a good core or whatever you want to call it. But you can really add to it and really build a strong class over these next 2 weekends. I just don't think you can understate the importance of these last 2 weekends. Tennessee likes to get those last visits too. You look at Clemson and Georgia, they both wanted to have their top guys in that first weekend. Tennessee wants the last weekend. So you are playing a little bit of, catch up coming into these recruitments just because all these official visits go well, Eric. They're it's fun. It's designed to be fun. These programs know what they're doing. So these kids are going to go have a good time. We don't ever interview a kid post-visit and they're like, it was miserable. The hotel was terrible. The food was terrible. You don't hear that. Everything, they're going to have a good time, but it's about, closing for Tennessee right now. And these 2 weekends are going to give them the opportunity to do that.
Again, we make jokes about Dabo and the way Clemson does it over there a lot, but I promise you, when I was down there for the Clemson Regional for baseball, that was their big official visit weekend for football. I drove by the stadium trying to find a way to get in there and look around. And, there was coaches and about 30 official visitors. And, I'm just telling you what I saw. They all had their arms around each other, and they were, singing Kumbaya. It looked weird. It looked weird from the car. But whatever gets the job done, I guess, right?
That's it, man. That's it. In the world of recruiting, you take a win where you can get it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hey, he is Matt Ray. You can follow him on Twitter. Great follow, @Matt_Ray_. A colleague of mine over at VolQuest.com doing an awesome job alongside Austin Price. For the best recruiting coverage for Tennessee football, you know where it's at. It is VolQuest.com. Matt, appreciate it as always, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, appreciate you, man.
All right, again, that is Matt Ray, my guy, over at VolQuest.com. Hey, when we come back, let's continue to react a little bit to the 2024 schedule release. A whole lot to get into in that regards, plus College Baseball World Series preview. That's coming up in segment number 3. But hey, Birddogs, they make you look good and you feel good as well. All right, my favorite line of this, maybe your favorite line, not necessarily my favorite line. I guess that's poor choice of words, but here it is. Birddog stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg and give you that truly sculpted look. Do with that with what you will, right? But, Birddogs, they're pants, they're shorts, they're designed for guys for that slimmer fit, but that stretch feel so you're not sacrificing movements or anything like that. The versatility, I talk about it all the time, okay? I got a pair of Birddogs pants and a pair of Birddogs khaki shorts. and I can go to meetings with them, work meetings. I go cover a game, football game, baseball game, whatever the case may be. I can go on a lunch meeting there or a date with my wife. The versatility is incredible. If I play golf, I play golf in them. They feel great to play golf, totally. But you can wear these suckers anywhere, anything, and they're stretched. They have that anti-stink sweat wicket fabric. All the bells and whistles for men like you and like me. So you don't want to miss out, all right? Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. You're not going to want to take off your Bird Dogs. We promise you that. Welcome back into your Friday edition of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you everydayers for coming in, checking out the show each and every day. Can't thank you enough for that. Can't do this show without each and every one of you guys. So I really, really do appreciate that. Good stuff there from Matt Ray, kind of setting the scene for this weekend. Big time weekend, official visitors for Tennessee football recruiting. Gonna have to make some moves with some of these guys. And of course, next weekend is even bigger. So in terms of numbers. So we'll continue to talk a whole lot of recruiting as this month rolls on. College baseball preview for the Tennessee Volunteers coming up in segment 3. But let's go back and revisit some of the other teams around the SEC and kind of how they fared in the 2024 schedule release. So we know about Tennessee. We talked about it on yesterday's show. Of course, the home games, Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi State. The away games, Arkansas, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt. We discussed how it's very similar, really, to what the 2024 schedule was going to look like anyway. You knew that Alabama was going to be on that schedule. You knew Vanderbilt was going to be on that schedule. On the day of, you knew Oklahoma was going to be on that schedule. And then you started hearing whispers and all that with Florida and Kentucky. And knowing that the SEC wouldn't make a team go back-to-back years to the same venue, you can kind of piece home away. So you kind of had a really good deal or idea of what that schedule for Tennessee was going to look like by the time it came out. But for some other teams around the Southeastern Conference, kind of how did they fare? Alabama got a tough schedule. And I think it's just so funny because, Alabama and Nick Saban complained and didn't want the 3-6 model because you didn't want your common opponents, your 3 common opponents every single year to be Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU. Well, Nick, guess who your opponents are on your 2024 SEC schedule? You're going to play a home game for the Iron Bowl against Auburn. You're going to be on the road against Tennessee and LSU. It's what you get, right? I mean, I just thought that was so dang funny. But Alabama's schedule is pretty tough, and let's be real. I mean, it's an SEC football schedule. It's going to be tough. Doesn't matter who you are. But Alabama's got Auburn at home, Georgia as well. I forgot about Georgia you have on that schedule. Goodness gracious. Auburn at home, Georgia at home, Missouri and South Carolina, and on the road, not only are you going to Tennessee and LSU, you're going to Oklahoma as well, and so that'll be interesting, plus a road trip to Nashville to Vanderbilt. So, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty tough schedule, if you will. Let's take a look at the Georgia Bulldogs. Again, we hope and pray that Georgia's not going to be the back-to-back reigning national champions by the time we really look at this schedule entering the 2024 season. But you've got home games against Auburn, so you get to keep that rivalry alive, which is good. Of course, you've got Florida as well. You've got Mississippi State at home, and you've got Tennessee at home. So the home schedule, pretty tough. I mean, Auburn, depending on where it is at that point in time, Florida as well, but you got Tennessee at home. On the road, though, you got Alabama, you've got Texas, Ole Miss, and Kentucky. Not as hard, in my opinion, as that of Alabama, but the schedule is, kind of tough. Looking at Florida, Florida is going to play, of course, Tennessee on the road. It's going to play Georgia on the road, so that'll be challenging. Of course, that's the world's largest cocktail party, so that's not a true road game, but you know what I'm saying. You welcome Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M to your home venue. So Florida's schedule's not the worst in the world, but still it's going to be a challenging slate. On our roundtable for Locked On, the SEC host that we did shortly after the announcement on Wednesday night, Arkansas, John Neighbors jumped on, host of Locked On Arkansas, and he was thrilled. He was talking about how the SEC takes every chance in the world to beat up on Arkansas, but I mean, which fan base doesn't say that? Am I right? I will say the 2020 one-off schedule, they really didn't do Arkansas any favors, so I'm with him there. But he was thrilled when you're talking about Arkansas' schedule. Home games against LSU, against Ole Miss, against Tennessee, and against Texas. Hitting the road for Auburn, Mississippi State, Missouri, and Texas A&M. Yeah, I mean, at this point in time, a lot can change in the year, but those are very winnable football games, road games. Auburn, you can win that game. Mississippi State, you can win that game. Missouri, you can win that game. A&M, we'll see. Home game against LSU, that'll be tough. Ole Miss, that'll be tough. Tennessee, that'll be tough. And Texas, that'll be tough. So at least you've got some grace games, if you will, on the road if you are the Arkansas Razorbacks. Two teams that I'm really excited about that are not on the schedule in 2024. Maybe, I don't know, to me, nothing gets me excited about playing Missouri, obviously. They were new to the SEC, so that's not a shocker. But nothing gets me excited about playing South Carolina. I'm so indifferent with South Carolina that it almost hurts how much I don't care. Should I care more? I mean, Tennessee's been playing South Carolina for a long time. I mean, I'm not that old. I don't care. I really don't. And so I'm pumped that South Carolina and Missouri are not on this schedule. Missouri in 2024 will welcome Arkansas, Auburn, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt. We'll hit the road for Alabama, Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Texas A&M. Whereas South Carolina, a couple of tough road matchups on the road at Alabama, on the road at Oklahoma, as well as Kentucky and Vanderbilt, and then welcoming LSU to home, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Texas A&M. So, again, I really think the SEC, in terms of distributing the schedule, did a pretty nice job because it is kind of balanced, if you will, for the most part. If you want to look around all 16 teams on this schedule, it's pretty balanced for the most part. Again, if you go back to Tennessee's, and we want to talk about that schedule for the Volunteers, here it is. We just did at Arkansas a little while ago. We played Auburn. I wanted Auburn, sure, but we played Auburn twice in the last couple of years. So I guess I understand. We as football fans are not going to get that. But again, that was an opportunity to date it back, right? On the road at Oklahoma, I think is so intriguing because again, the storylines for Josh Heupel. But I'm telling you, if Tennessee would have got Texas instead of Oklahoma, I would have been fine with that as well, right? Battle of the UTs, Battle of the Oranges, and most importantly, Arch Manning versus Nico Iamaleava. I think that game could have been really, really cool. But, they wanted the Josh Heupel angle, which I understand, but still, Tennessee going to Oklahoma. Alabama at home, Florida at home. I'm so glad Tennessee's playing Kentucky and then Mississippi State. I'm a little indifferent about that as well. But Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Oklahoma, those are some of the heavy hitters on the schedule for Tennessee in 2024. And, of course, Arkansas will not be a cakewalk in Fayetteville. Mississippi State at home, Kentucky at home, which is good. I'm glad that they're playing Kentucky. And also, Kentucky announced that they're going to have alcoholic beverages, for sale inside Kroger Field. So there is absolutely no excuse. And again, thoughts and continued prayers to the family, who lost their son, so many years ago. I'm not trying to be indecent, or I'm not trying to be what's the word I'm looking for. I'm not trying to be insensitive. There you go. But there's alcohol sales everywhere. The entire SEC is doing it. Tennessee's doing it. There's absolutely no reason why the beer barrel should not be hoisted back up on the shoulders of the winning team. It needs to come back in the worst way. You want to talk about the pageantry of college football? You want to talk about what makes college athletics so much different than that of the professionals? It's stuff like this. Silly little rivalry trophies, okay? And the battle for the beer barrel was one of the coolest things. And if the barrel comes back, it leads me to believe that whenever we eventually do make it to the 3-6 model, that Kentucky will be in there. And I would love that so much. All right, so I wanted to react a little bit more to some of the teams around the SEC and their 2024 schedules, and talk a little bit more about a day out, 2 days out from Tennessee's schedule. We'll continue to talk about that an awful lot over the next year and a half, but obviously you got a 2023 season you got to get to first. This weekend, though, Tennessee baseball is back in Omaha for the College World Series. We'll get your preview set right here coming up next on Locked On Vols. College World Series It starts today. Tennessee gets going at 7 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow, Saturday, against LSU. 7 o'clock Eastern time, and that game you can find it on ESPN. The second time in 3 seasons, Tennessee is back to the College World Series. There's only 4 teams currently, and only 3 teams that are in the current field that have done that. Stanford is one of them, which is on this side of the bracket with the University of Tennessee. But hey, it'll get started on Saturday, and it will have Paul Skeens and LSU. Quickly, kind of the way this works, and I explained it a little bit earlier in the week, but 2 brackets, 8 teams, 2 14 brackets essentially in Omaha. It's like regional play, double elimination. You got to win that regional, if you will, that bracket, and then you advance on to the College World Series final, which is a best of the 3-game series. Tennessee's bracket, Tennessee side of the bracket's pretty challenging, no doubt about it. I mean, you've got Wake Forest, that's the undisputed best team in the country right now, LSU, Stanford, and the Volunteers, whereas on the other side of the bracket, Florida, in my opinion, I don't want to say cakewalk, but it's got a pretty easy path to the College World Series finals with Virginia, TCU, and Oral Roberts. So we'll see what happens. If Tennessee were to win Saturday against LSU, it would play Monday at 7 o'clock against the winner of Wake Forest and Stanford. If it were to lose, it would play at 2 o'clock Eastern time on Monday against the loser of Wake Forest and Stanford, and that would be an elimination game. So that's kind of the lay of the land for the first few days, and of course we will reevaluate as the time and the days tick on from Omaha. But man, you look at these teams, and for the sake of this conversation, and I'm writing about it over at volquest.com, I'm not going to preview the other side of the bracket right now, okay? First of all, it's a waste of my time because Tennessee's not going to play them. The only way Tennessee would play any of those 4 teams is if it were to advance on to the College World Series final. And if that were the case, I would have tons of preview about Tennessee and whatever team that is. If it's Florida, if it's Oral Roberts, TCU, or Virginia, whoever it is. So I'm going to preview and let you guys know about some of these teams that Tennessee will play over the next couple of days. Starting with LSU. LSU, really good ball club. Preseason ranked 1 and 2, Tennessee and LSU, or LSU and Tennessee rather. LSU's got the 4th toughest RPI, the 17th toughest strength of schedule. Paul Skeens. He is a really good player, best pitcher in all of baseball right now. He lives in triple digits. He's 2nd best ERA in the country at 1.77, leading the nation in strikeouts with 188. He is number 2 at MLB.com's MLB Draft Prospects from college, and he is really, really good. His teammate Dylan Cruz is an outfielder, and he's number 1 on that MLB top draft prospect list, and gosh, he's really good. He's 434 batting average. Let that sink in. A 434 batting average. He's got the third best in the country in terms of that regard, that batting average. 17 home runs, 67 RBI, 15 doubles, okay? Just a really, really dynamic player that can do it all. He leads the team with 89 runs scored, a 576 on base percentage, all that type of stuff. But that's just one guy in that lineup, Dylan Cruz. Tommy White leads the team, right? Coming over from NC State, transfer portal last offseason, leads the team, hitting cleanup, 22 home runs, 97 RBI. Let that sink in. 97 runs batted in. Incredible, okay? That's just magnificent. So you got him, you've got Trey Morgan across the diamond at first base, you got Gavin Dugas at second base, you got Brady Neal behind the plate. I mean, they're loaded. LSU is a good ball club. LSU is really good with the bats, okay? Their team average of 314, 13th in the nation, 2nd best OBP in the country, 438. They have the 2nd best slugging percentage. They are 2nd in home runs, only to Tennessee. And they are 1st in the nation with 588 runs scored. Let's go back to the pitching a little bit. Behind Paul Skeens, not a whole lot to be confident about, in my opinion. Ty Floyd's a good pitcher. He's their number 2 starter. 7-0 record, a 4.50 ERA. I'm mentioning all this because you'll see Paul Skeens tomorrow, but if Tennessee and LSU were to meet again, next week at some point, you might see Ty Floyd or somebody else, right? 4.50 ERA, 7-0. You got Thatcher Hurd, 6-2, a 6.49 ERA, which is not very good. Riley Cooper is a bullpen arm, 4-3 on the season, a 5.02 ERA. He leads the team with 27 appearances. Blake Money, 1-0 record, a 5.73 ERA is another guy. Gavin Gildry, leads the team with saves with 3. So behind Paul Skeens, not very impressive. So, regardless of what happens on Saturday, if Tennessee and LSU were to meet again, I like Tennessee's chances. Let's go on to Wake Forest. Best team in the country, okay? 52-10 is the record. They were 22-7 in ACC play. They won the ACC regular season. The number 1 team according to the RPI, number 37 in terms of strength of schedule. Their bats are incredible. Listen to this national averages here, okay? Average 309, that's 19th in the country. OBP, 3rd in the country. Slugging, 6th in the country. Home runs, 4th in the country. Runs scored, 3rd in the country. 8 of their 9 regular starters are hitting over 300. Let that sink in. 8 of their 9 regular starters are hitting over 300. First baseman Nick Kurtz is a really talented player. Cleanup hitter Brock Wilkin is tied for the 2nd in the country with 30 home runs and tied for 10th in the nation with 80 runs driven in. Really, really good ball players. You look at the arms, and for as good as they are at the plate, they're even better on the mound. Team ERA, 284, 1st in the country. Strikeouts per 9 innings. Tennessee's 2nd, by the way. Strikeouts per 9 innings, 12.2, 1st in the country. WHIP, 1.04, 1st in the country. I mean, it's incredible, man. Their ace, Rhett Lauder, 15-0, a 192 ERA. Goodness gracious. He's 5th in the nation with 131 strikeouts, 4th in the nation in ERA. Opponents are only hitting 207 against him. Really good. But not just him, right? The guys behind him, unlike LSU, really talented for Wake Forest. You have Seth Keener, 7-1, a 2.23 ERA. He's made 21 appearances on the season, 7 starts. He's kind of a swing guy. You have lefty Sean Sullivan, 5-3, 2.80 ERA. He's started 10 games this season. Lefty Josh Hartle, 11-2, 2.80 ERA. He's been the number 2 starter, and he's got 131 strikeouts as well, over 96 innings and a third. You have Camden Mencia, how do you say that name? Menacee, who has 12 saves on the season. I mean, Wake Forest, good ball club. Wake Forest is a really good ball club. So when Tennessee squares off against Wake Forest, which I'm sure they will, it's going to be a challenge. And Tennessee did see them back in the fall. Doesn't mean anything, but they played 18 innings of fall baseball against Wake Forest. So, at least they're kind of familiar with some of those guys. Tennessee lost a series in Baton Rouge to LSU earlier in the season, 2-1. But Tennessee's a very much different team than LSU, than Tennessee was at that time as well. And then finally, if Tennessee were to play Stanford, again, they're the other team in this bracket, 44-18 on the season, 23-7 in Pac-12 play. They were the 8th overall seed, 16th according to the RPI, 35th strength of schedule, and they were the Pac-12 regular season champions. Pretty solid at the plate, 3.19 ERA. That's not, or 3.19 batting average. That's 9th in the country. They're 10th in terms of home runs with 117. They're 10th in terms of runs scored, 529. Pretty solid, around the lineup. 8 again, just like LSU. 8 of the 9 everyday players for LSU in that lineup are hitting over 300. You have Troy. What is his name? Excuse me. You have Tommy Troy, who's a leadoff hitter and the third baseman, rather. He's hitting over 300. He's also stolen 17 bags as well, so he's kind of the speed demon there. And then in the arms, where pretty solid in the batting order, there's opportunity against the Stanford arms, in my opinion. You got a team ERA of 5.75. That is 128th in the nation. That is not good. They do strike out a lot of batters, though. 10.5 Ks per 9 innings. That's 13th in the country. And then a whip of 1.55, which is 108th in the country. So, again, there is opportunity there, of course. If you meet up with Stanford in an elimination game or a couple days down the line, how much pitching do you have left? It does help that you have built-in off days. I will say that. But there's opportunity here for Tennessee's bats against Stanford. Joey Dixon, probably the best pitcher they have, 7-0, 4.86 ERA. He got the starts in supers and in regional play out of the gates. Let's see here. You got Quinn Matthews, who's the stud, and he's the one that made headlines last week in Game 2 against Texas in super play, where he threw 156 pitches and had 16 strikeouts. First of all, that's malpractice, okay? You are doing that kid a disservice. I understand that pitch counts sometimes go out the window this time of the year, but you're not taking his safety into consideration. That's a piss-poor job by that coaching staff, in my opinion. But Quinn Matthews, 10-4, 3.60 ERA, a really, really solid pitcher. He usually gets the ball in Game 2. And, we'll see what happens. But that's a little bit of a scouting report on Tennessee's side of the bracket. If Tennessee makes it out and goes to the College World Series Championship Series, then I will do, obviously, another preview on who Tennessee will play. But second time in 3 years, Tennessee's back to the College World Series, joining Stanford, joining Virginia, and Texas. Of course, Texas didn't make the field, but those 4 teams, only 4 teams in the country to accomplish that feat, and 3 of them are right back here in Omaha. 6th appearance all-time in the College World Series for Tennessee. Tennessee was runner-up back in 1951, so we'll see what happens. I'm really, really excited to see Tennessee get in action in Omaha for the College World Series, and you can follow all of my work at VolQuest.com and, of course, at _Caner to stay updated with everything Tennessee in the College World Series. Can't thank you guys enough for tuning in another week's worth of Locked On Vols. I'll have these shows for you live from Omaha next week, so looking forward to that. Shout out everydayers. Thank you so much for being here. If you're not an everydayer, come back on Monday. We'll let you know all about it. Please subscribe to Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel, wherever you get your listening audio podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, all that good stuff. Rate me 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Really, really helps me out. Interact on the YouTube channel. All that stuff helps the show out so much. So can't thank you guys enough for that. Stay safe this weekend. If you're going to Omaha, safe travels, and I will see you there. This is Locked On Vols.